Some devastating news coming out of Seattle today, as it turns out that the Mariners starting pitcher Robbie Ray will have to undergo season-ending flexor tendon surgery. Now, it turns out that flexor tendon surgery is better than Tommy John. Tommy John is where you're replacing a ligament. Flexor tendon surgery is more so just repairing the tendon in the elbow. I don't know too much beyond that, but it sounds like flexor tendon surgery has a shorter timetable for recovery, which is the good news. This is a huge blow to the Mariners starting rotation, as Robbie was heading into his second year of his 5-year contract extension with the Mariners, and he looked phenomenal this spring, sitting in the mid to upper 90s. He also came into camp with a new splitter, but in his first outing of the season, he went just 3 1/3 innings. His velocity was down, he walked 5 guys. Turns out that he was injured. It's one thing to lose his production on the field, but it's another to lose a guy like him that's been a mentor to some of these guys like Logan Gilbert and George Kirby. They all came into camp with new splitters kind of playing off of each other. So now the question becomes, what do you do with Robbie Ray's spot in the starting rotation? The fill-in for Robbie Ray so far this year has been Chris Flexon. They stretched him out this spring, and instead of going with a 6-man rotation, he started in the bullpen. Robbie got injured, Flexon moved in there. He's made 4 starts so far, going 0-4 with a 10.38 ERA. Opponents have been hitting off him to the tune of a 355 batting average, a 417 on base, 566 slugging, which is a 983 OPS. He's also had some trouble with command, pitching to a 10.8% walk rate or a 4.6 walks per 9. And his velocity was also dipping in his last outing. So let's turn to this article by Daniel Kramer, who talked to Scott Service about the starting rotation. And Scott Service did not rule out making a change as soon as Saturday in Toronto when that spot in the rotation came back up. Service said, "We're talking about everything right now. We certainly still like our rotation, but we've got young guys down below that are really interesting prospects." He goes on to list the Mariners' top 5 pitching prospects in Bryce Miller, Emerson Hancock, Brian Wu, Prelander Baroa, and then Taylor Dollard. Those first 4 guys are currently pitching at AA Arkansas. They've all gotten 3 starts so far in the year. Bryce Miller has gotten a 4th start, and then Taylor Dollard is currently at AAA Tacoma. And if you know how the Mariners farm system works, typically AA Arkansas is going to be the last stop for a pitcher before they get promoted to the big leagues. But we'll dive deeper into these guys in just a second. First off, we'll finish the article. So down at the bottom, Scott Service says, "We're kind of working through what's the best course of action for us. Probably more long-term than actual short-term. Again, a lot of discussions are going on. We'll figure it out going forward." I think that quote right there is a key piece in determining what the Mariners might do moving forward. He said they're not really looking for short-term, they're looking for a long-term solution. And that long-term solution is in calling up those top prospects in Bryce Miller, Emerson Hancock, potentially Brian Wu. It's not in the short-term options like Chris Flexon, potentially Tommy Malone, or signing Madison Bumgarner. Currently, there's one spot in the rotation that's open, but at some point during the season, there might be another that opens up. A pretty incredible stat is that the 2022 Seattle Mariners managed to have not one starting pitcher miss a turn in their rotation. No injuries to the starting pitchers. That was not going to be sustainable, and it's a good thing that the Mariners have built so much depth at that position. Now, getting into the minor league guys, you have to keep in mind that we're dealing with a very small sample size. Again, each guy has only had 3 starts so far on the year. Bryce Miller just had his 4th start of the year today, Wednesday. Bryce Miller, through 4 starts, has a 6.41 ERA, 1.322 whip, an 8.2 Ks per 9, and a 1.4 walks per 9. I'm throwing that ERA out the window. He had a blow up in one of his first few starts, but that doesn't really matter. He has a 4-pitch mix that includes a fastball that gets up to 100 miles an hour. He has a sweeping slider along with a gyro slider and then a changeup. He pounds the zone, has solid command, and averaged about 3 walks per 9 last year. Bryce Miller is the most stretched out of these guys. He went a little over 133 innings last year, and we mainly saw him and Prelander during spring training getting the opportunities. Emerson Hancock is another big name. So far through his 3 starts, he has a 7.5 ERA, a 1.75 whip, 13.5 strikeouts per 9, and a 4.5 walks per 9. Again, small sample size, but it's just nice to see that he's healthy. He pitched just under 100 innings last year after dealing with some injuries in the prior couple years. But if Emerson can reach his potential, he is just as high of a ceiling as anybody. He looked dominant last year in that Futures game with a 97-mile-an-hour 2-seam, and he's got a 4 or 5 pitch arsenal. Brian Wu is a very interesting name, as he was drafted in 2021, but he missed time due to Tommy John surgery and has only pitched 69 innings so far combined with 2022 and this year. His stats so far this year over 3 starts are a 2.25 ERA, a .917 whip, 14.3 strikeouts per 9, and a 3 walks per 9. He is the least stretched out of all these names. I'm curious if we'll see him out of the bullpen at some point this year so that they can continue to manage his innings, but he's got the stuff to where he can get guys out today. He's got a fastball reaching the upper 90s and a few other pitches. Definitely an interesting name, but I don't think he's quite there. Prelander Berroa is a very interesting name. We saw a lot of him this spring. Prelander, in his first 3 starts this year, he's at a 5.79 ERA, a 1.714 whip, 12.9 strikeouts per 9, and 5.1 walks per 9. I made a player profile on Prelander, so go check that out after this video, but with his profile, I see him coming out of the bullpen. With his combination of really being a 2-pitch pitcher with a fastball and slider, he's got a changeup, but he doesn't use it too often. He strikes guys out, but he doesn't have the best command. He was approaching about 6 walks per 9 last year. So if Prelander were to make an impact on the Major League roster, it would definitely be out of the bullpen. Then we got Taylor Dollard, who's currently in AAA Tacoma. Over his first 3 games, he's at a 7.56 ERA, a 1.44 whip, 8.6 strikeouts per 9, and 3.2 walks per 9. He profiles more to someone like Marco Gonzalez, who's more of a finesse pitcher compared to a power pitcher. His fastball sits in the low 90s, but he's got some great breaking stuff. And Dollard really could be an innings eater if they want to bring him up and use him in that role. But if I was a betting man, I would say that we're going to see Bryce Miller starting in Toronto for the Mariners on Sunday. Currently, Flexen's spot is slotted for Saturday, but Bryce Miller would be pitching on short rest, so I'd imagine that they'll move Marco from Sunday to Saturday, Bryce Miller on Sunday. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below on this situation with Robbie Ray. Who do you think out of these guys will get the call? Thank you for watching, and make sure to like and subscribe for more Mariners and baseball content throughout the season.
All right, guys, goodbyes only. Don't forget it.